Today we're going to show you how to rebuild the forks on a Yamaha PW50. It's going to be the same process for any of the models all the way up to 2016. And with this, keep in mind that the right fork is not serviceable. We can replace the seal and maybe get a little more grease down in there, but most of this is going to be on that left fork. So if your forks are not feeling good, you want to get in there, get them greased up, and replace any worn out parts. So let's go ahead and get started. To get this job done, we're going to need some common hand tools. I've got 12 and 17 millimeter sockets, 14, 17 millimeter combo wrenches, 5 millimeter Allen. I'm using a pick. These are the 45-degree tip snap ring pliers. I've got a wire brush, screwdrivers, and I've got a scissor jack to help support the bike. Other than that, I'm using some safety glasses, rubber gloves, and some rags. As far as parts go, we have our new dust seals, and I am going to use a new snap ring when I go back together. Other than that, you definitely want some new grease, and we're also going to use some contact cleaner. To start out, we need to remove the front wheel. We did support our bike with a scissor jack, but this isn't absolutely necessary. To get the front wheel off, we're going to loosen the brake adjuster. Then we'll remove the axle and wheel. After that, we want to loosen up the handlebars. That's going to allow us to get a socket on top of the bolts in the tops of the forks. We'll remove both of those. After that, we're going to remove the lower clamping bolt for the forks on both sides and remove them. Okay, quick reminder, this right side fork that does not have this little nub at the bottom, this one is non-serviceable, but the dust seal is in bad condition, so we are going to replace it. Now, we're going to start out by doing the left side fork first. And the first thing we want to do is remove this dust seal. Now, under that dust seal, there's a little bit of grease. So we're going to wipe that out. That's going to give us access to our snap ring. Now to get the snap ring out, I'm going to use these 45-degree tip snap ring pliers, and I'm going to press down on the fork tube to take the tension off the snap ring. That's just going to help it be able to come out easy. And you want to pay attention to how this comes out. So the sharp edge of the snap ring should be facing up. You know, when these are made, typically they're stamped out, so one side is going to be rounded. So I'm going to take that off, and as we come apart, we're just going to lay everything in order. So I've got a little bushing, and from here we can probably just take this whole thing apart, but if you're having troubles with it, you can put it in a vise and separate the two pieces. But that one just pulled right out, so we have that collar, and right here we have that top out spring. And then there should be a couple more pieces in here. So there's going to be just a flat plate. I'm going to see if that, okay. So we've got our flat plate, got a rubber damper, and there should be a spring. So this stuff is all looking pretty nasty. I'm just going to wipe it up. You know, these springs, you can use this wire brush to help clean some of the junk off of them. And then once we have everything cleaned up, we can go back together and install the new parts where anything is worn out. Now, before I go back together, I want to check these parts. Now, we do know everything was working pretty good before, so we're probably going to be okay, but you just want to take a look at things like your springs, make sure they're not rusted up or damaged. You know, this damper or the bushings, if you have any damage to those, you can find those parts on the OEM diagrams on our website. Now, for us, we did have bad fork seals or dust seals on both forks, so we do need to get those replaced. And then the snap ring, you don't necessarily need to replace it, but we have a new one, so we're going to put that in. So I'm going to move all these parts in order, set my new seal on there, as well as my snap ring. And then as we go together, you just want to make sure you have plenty of grease on all of your parts. So, and even this spring, I mean, obviously the grease isn't really going to do much to help with this, but having grease on it is going to help prevent rust. Now, as far as grease goes, you want something that's a little bit lighter. If you get a really heavy grease, everything's going to be kind of sticky. So this Motor X stuff, you know, it's pretty light and it's going to work great. I'm going to wipe a little bit down in this outer tube, and then we're going to make sure we have plenty on this lower section of that inner tube or the slider, especially down by this bushing right here. And then from here, we're going to start assembling everything. So first we have the spring. We've got our rubber damper. And we've got our flat plate. Make sure that is seated flush. Then I'm going to assemble this inner tube or the slider. We've got the top out spring, the collar, and then this bushing at the top, the lip or the larger diameter right there, that's going to be facing towards the top when we're done. And with these on here, I'm just going to put a little extra grease on there, just because we're not going to be going in here anytime soon. I want to make sure we have plenty on there. That might be a little too much. Wipe the excess off. Now we're just going to slide this inner assembly into place. We're going to press it down and install the new circlip. And again, we've got that square side of the circlip facing up. And then to make sure that clip is all the way down, you want to poke it with a screwdriver or pick and just make sure it's all the way in its groove, because that's what's holding this thing together. You don't want it coming out. Now you're going to want to make sure that you grease the lips of the seal, and we're going to slide that down into place. And when you put the seal on, you know, these lips are the edge of your slider. They're not that sharp, but you want to make sure you don't cut the seal. So we're just going to be gentle as we work this into place around there. Then from here, you just want to wipe off any excess grease. Now with that one finished, we're going to move to the non-brake side and replace that dust seal. So again, we're just going to pop that seal up with the screwdriver. It's got that groove in the bottom. Just work that out of there, pop it off. Now, since this one is not serviceable, if you have any major issues with it, you just need to replace the whole thing. But if it just seems a little dry, you can try to pack a little grease down in here and kind of work it in as good as you can. And we might try to do a little bit of that since we're here. you have a ton of old grease right there, you can wipe it out. So that's about as good as we're gonna get it on this one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and install that new seal. Now I'm gonna wipe off the extra grease and we'll bring these back over to the bike. Okay, now we can slide the forks back into the triple clamps. So I'm just gonna slide the tube all the way in. It's gonna bottom out at the top. We'll install that bolt. And you're gonna have to tighten down that lower clamp while you tighten the top. But then you're gonna loosen that lower clamp, let everything settle, and then you can torque the bottom one. Then we're going to install the other fork leg in the same way. After you tighten the fork tubes, you can go back and tighten up your handlebars. Now I'm going to install the wheel, and just make sure that you keep track of your collar, and on that brake side you have the tab you need to line up. Then we're going to tighten the axle nut down and adjust our brake. And that's it for rebuilding the forks on your Yamaha PW50. If you have any questions about this, leave those down in the comments below. And if you need any parts for your PW, you can find those on our website. Just click the link in the description below. And if you want to see more helpful content like this, subscribe to our channel. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.